They called it the safest luxury high-rise apartment complex in town. Gated walls, patrolling security guards, and personalized key cards required for entry, exit, and use of the facilities, such as a private pool, gymnasium, and more. Everything a single woman living alone could need to feel secure, right? But sometimes, taking this illusion of safety for granted can lead to fatal consequences. On April 5th, 2024, just before midnight, a woman eagerly anticipates returning to her apartment after her travels. Anyaphat is more than just a pretty face. She is a single, successful businesswoman who earns a living selling products online. She supports herself comfortably, indulging in luxury handbags, expensive jewelry, and stylish clothing, and takes care of herself. She was seen driving back around 11:40 p.m., and now she's in her apartment building, taking the elevator up to her home on the 10th floor. She has her earphones on, chatting on the phone, while gripping the handle of her green suitcase. On the other end of the call is her friend. Let's call her Anna. Their conversation is casual, discussing her trip, planning when they'll meet again, and how Anyaphat can't wait to take a hot shower and head to bed. Anna hears Anyaphat's keys jingle as she unlocks the door to her 10th floor apartment. Anyaphat had previously expressed her love for this cozy little lakeside apartment, especially appreciating the access to a swimming pool just a floor below, a fitness center, and most importantly, the peace of mind provided by living in a secure complex. This was crucial for Anyaphat, who lived alone and was wary of the frequent break-ins and robberies in the ground floor houses in the area. However, no one could have anticipated the tragic irony that was about to unfold. Anna hears Anyaphat open the door and step inside. This is followed by a loud scream, and then silence. The line goes dead. Naturally, this alarms her, and she frantically tries calling back several times, desperate to reach her friend, but to no avail. Knowing something is wrong, Anna wants to check on Anyaphat, but doesn't want to go alone, so she decides to call a mutual friend. Let's call him Benny. She quickly explains the situation to Benny, who, being the champ that he is, agrees to drop everything and accompany Anna to Anyaphat's apartment complex. It's now 1 a.m. when Benny picks her up, and they drive over to the complex. They approach the security guard on duty, inform him they are guests, and explain that they heard their friend scream and haven't been able to contact her since. The guard explains that at this late hour, he cannot simply sign them in as guests without an invitation from a resident, who, again at this hour, is likely unavailable. Nevertheless, he agrees to buzz Anyaphat's apartment to check if she's okay. When there's no answer, he suggests they wait a few minutes in case she's sleeping. Anna and Benny insist they cannot wait and urge him to check on her. After a few minutes of back and forth, the guard finally agrees to accompany them to Anyaphat's apartment. He grabs the master key and leaves a note for any guest that he will be back shortly. The three of them take the elevator up to Anyaphat's 10th floor residence. The guard rings the doorbell and knocks, identifying himself, but still receives no answer. Now increasingly concerned, Anna and Benny urge him to open the door. Reluctantly, he agrees and uses his master key to unlock the door. It's now 1:22 a.m., nearly an hour and a half since Anna last spoke with her friend. The apartment is pitch dark, and the guard reaches for the light switch. He also calls out, announcing his presence to anyone who might be listening, stating that he's entering the apartment to ensure everything is okay. As soon as the guard flips the light switch, the three of them freeze. The apartment is in complete disarray. Drawers are open, clothes and belongings are strewn about. It looks thoroughly ransacked. But what truly shocks everyone is the sight of a body lying face down in a massive pool of blood. Anna screams involuntarily, recognizing her friend's general shape, clothes, and hair. The rest is a horrific, bloody mess. It's clear that someone brutally attacked her and left her to bleed out. Benny tries to console Anna, but there's nothing they can do. The guard checks for a pulse, but it's evident Anyaphat has been gone for quite some time. They immediately dialed emergency services. Police from the nearby Ratan Tibet police station arrive swiftly, cordoned off the area and began their investigation. An examination of Anyaphat's body revealed multiple stab wounds to her neck, face, and arms, the latter being defensive wounds, indicating she fought back. Her time of death was approximately established as 2 hours before their arrival, aligning with when Anna heard Anyaphat scream. A medical examiner would later determine the fatal wound was to her neck, likely severing her carotid artery, which explained the massive blood loss. The carotid artery, being one of the largest in the body, is responsible for transporting blood from the heart to the rest of the body. No doubt there was a struggle, filled with adrenaline, and her heart must have been beating fast, leading to even more blood loss. The only small comfort is that she likely passed out within seconds and did not suffer long. Now the police and the specially authorized journalists at the crime scene in Thailand have one goal: to find whoever was responsible for this gruesome end. Initially, the scene suggested a robbery gone wrong, but there was a possibility that the scene was staged to disguise an ulterior motive. The police questioned her friends about whether Anyaphat had any enemies, debts, or any dealings that might provide a motive for someone to harm her. However, both friends were adamant that they knew of no one that would want to harm Anyaphat. Continuing their investigation in the apartment, the police discovered a bloody footprint on the balcony, suggesting the intruder might have escaped that way. But this seemed improbable. The significant gaps between each apartment floor made it difficult for someone to climb down. Perhaps they used a rope or dropped down to the swimming pool deck one floor below. The deck was wide enough that, if they jumped and rolled upon landing, they could potentially escape unarmed. But how? They would need to be quite fit to attempt such a maneuver in the first place. The detectives on the scene instinctively turned to the apartment building's various CCTV cameras. Unfortunately, there were no cameras facing the balcony side of the building, which would have easily captured the perpetrator climbing down. However, they reasoned that the perpetrator must have appeared on at least one camera while escaping the premises, as it would be impossible to leave the gated walls without passing through the front door. Shockingly, their initial search came up completely dry. It was as if the perpetrator had vanished into thin air. The CCTV footage outside Anyaphat's apartment showed no one else entering or leaving her room. The guard and her friends were the next to enter, and the detectives and journalists were the last. Something was not adding up. The perpetrator couldn't just vanish, and the apartment was thoroughly searched. No one could be hiding inside. Surprisingly, while examining the pool deck, the detectives found a pair of bloodied blue shorts, very likely belonging to the assailant. These were immediately sent to the lab, suggesting they were likely dealing with a male suspect of medium to tall build. However, the real breakthrough arrived when they examined the balcony and found a faint trail of blood leading upward. It appeared they had been looking in the wrong place all along. The perpetrator hadn't escaped by jumping down one floor. They had managed to climb up, a difficult but not impossible feat for someone fit and adept. With this new clue, the police immediately began searching the floors above, starting with the apartment directly above hers. The 11th floor was entirely empty, and the balcony doors were locked with no signs of forced entry, so they proceeded to the 12th. They wanted to question everyone in the complex who might have heard something that night. When they rang the doorbell and identified themselves as police, a man and woman opened the door, presumably a couple. Both officers noticed numerous fresh scratch marks on the man's face and hands. They exchanged looks, each knowing what the other was thinking. They immediately asked the man and his girlfriend to come in for questioning. The scratches on the man's face looked recent, and both individuals were to be questioned separately to verify their stories. The man identified himself as Lieutenant Anyaphat, a 32-year-old who worked at the Royal Thai Armed Forces headquarters. Anyaphat claimed he lived with his girlfriend and was home alone that night, staying up late doing chores to prepare for the upcoming week. He said he didn't hear any screaming, had never seen the victim before, and wasn't even aware she lived in the apartment complex. He explained that he was up doing laundry and cleaning the apartment before his girlfriend's arrival that night. Everything seemed to be going as normal until he was questioned about the scratches on his face. His demeanor changed, and he said he had a fight with his girlfriend that night. When probed further, he became defensive. Detectives asked him if the scratches were instead inflicted by Anyaphat. Once again, Girawat denied any knowledge of the crime, further reiterating that he had never met her in his life. In contrast, his girlfriend had a different account. She arrived home that night on April 7th at around 1:55 a.m. She noticed her boyfriend doing laundry and cleaning their apartment, which surprised her, but she didn't think much of it at the time. They went to bed soon after, and surprisingly, she never mentioned they had a fight. When questioned about it directly, she seemed surprised and denied having a physical fight with her boyfriend, stating they argued but it never turned physical. The detectives were now very interested in hearing her account and probing her further. She seemed to be fully cooperating with them. When asked if anything at all was troubling her boyfriend, she mentioned he had a gambling addiction and had recently asked her for money, but she turned him down. When she was shown a picture of the bloody blue shorts, she immediately recognized them and said they looked like the ones that belonged to her boyfriend. With a strong motive and potentially a suspect now identified, the police continued their investigation. From CCTV footage, they noticed that a day before the crime, on April 5th, Anyaphat was leaving her apartment at 10:23 a.m., pulling the handle of her green suitcase. They believe Girawat noticed this and realized he could climb down and rob her while she was away. What he didn't expect was that she would return so soon, practically the next day. It's very likely that he planned to rob her while she was away, using his military training and fitness to climb down from his balcony into hers. And unfortunately, she had left her balcony door unlocked. As he was stealing from her apartment at midnight, she just so happened to return home, completely catching him off guard. As a quick reminder, she returned less than 48 hours later, seen driving back around 11:40 p.m. and entering her home around midnight. After Anyaphat entered her apartment whilst on call with her friend, what happened next was unforgivable. Girawat lay in wait for her, and when she least suspected, he attacked, stabbing and killing her in a brutal manner. She fought back valiantly, but caught off guard and overpowered, there was little she could do to defend herself. I must say, this is speculation on my part, and based on the latest news of this case. The case is yet to go to trial, and there is always a chance that despite how things may seem on the surface, the truth can be something completely different. Now, disclaimers aside, if you continue watching, I'll go through all the evidence uncovered that seems to point pretty conclusively that Girawat indeed was the one who committed the crime. After placing Girawat under arrest, the police obtained a warrant to thoroughly search his apartment. Further reviewing the CCTV footage from that night, Girawat can be seen outside his apartment after the murder, throwing away garbage and other items in the trash. Interestingly, he stops for a moment and glances at the CCTV camera. This behavior is unusual for someone who lives in the apartment and must have passed by that camera hundreds of times before. These small behavioral clues seem innocuous by themselves, but when added together, they become greater than the sum of their parts. Within Girawat's apartment, detectives found what they consider the smoking gun implicating him in the robbery and murder of Anyaphat that night. They found jewelry that belonged to her hidden within the mouth of an M&M figurine. Furthermore, it didn't take long for them to find the probable murder weapon either. A pair of blue scissors with bloodstains on them. Unless this evidence was planted, it truly boggles the mind why Girawat would have in his possession the jewelry that belonged to Anyaphat and the alleged weapon in his apartment. Why didn't he at least dispose of the murder weapon when he was throwing the trash? It seems almost too convenient to find such compelling evidence linking him to the crime in his apartment. But then again, this is true crime, and often the actions and motivations of people don't follow what we would expect to find in an ideal scenario. Police are still unsure how Girawat's bloodied shorts ended up on the 9th floor. A TV station speculated that he simply threw them, suggesting that the man is not right in the head. Either way, there is more than enough evidence to build a strong case against him. Now, because Girawat is a serving member of the Thai military, he will be tried in a military court according to laws of the nation. Detectives have already handed over their files and casework to the military prosecution team. Jirawat is currently in prison, awaiting trial, and could face the death penalty if convicted. He adamantly denies any involvement in the crime. His girlfriend is not charged or suspected of any wrongdoing, and her statements could be used as evidence against him. The tragedy in all this is a beautiful and successful woman who was simply returning home, minding her own business, and could have never in a million years expected to be so brutally attacked and murdered in her own home. While her friends did what they thought best to check if she's okay, it would have been better to simply contact the police at the time they heard her scream. Who knows, the police may have arrived in time to call an ambulance and save her. Anyaphat, may you rest in peace, and may justice against the wrongdoing committed against you be served very soon. What do you think you would do in this situation? Would locking the balcony door have deterred the assailant? Also, do you know anyone where due to their addiction problems have done some terrible things? Let me know in the comments. My friends, stay vigilant, stay safe, and thank you all for your incredible support, especially those who have watched all my cases to date. Do me a small favor, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't. This is Victor, and I'll see you in the next one.